Alright, last week I shared my thoughts with you all on Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, the first film in the Gamera Heisei era, and if you watched that video, then you know that I absolutely loved that film, and you can imagine I was super excited for the sequels, and let me tell you, they have not disappointed so far. Gamera, Attack of Legion, might just be better than the first. I say might because I just really can't decide. Just like the first, it's an awesome film, and I'm really excited to share my thoughts on it. So let's hop into the background information so we can get started. Gamera Attack of Legion is the second film in the Gamera Heisei trilogy. It was released in 1996 and was directed by Shusuke Kaneko, and the special effects were orchestrated by Shinji Higuchi. While often considered the worst of the trilogy by most fans, it is still a masterful film that is part of one of the greatest kaiju trilogies of all time. So, now, here are my thoughts on Gamera Attack of Legion. Quick spoilers warning, as usual, just the basic stuff, but I just recommend watching the movie before this video. Wow. I was actually kind of worried that this film wouldn't have been able to live up to the kaiju masterpiece which was Guardian of the Universe, but boy was I wrong. Both plots in this film are incredible. Even the weaker of the two, the human plot, was still entertaining and well made. Just like the first film, I loved watching the humans try to solve the mystery at the beginning and then try to deal with the sudden appearance of the monsters. I also still liked the plotline about the girl who was connected to Gamera, although I felt like this was definitely a missed opportunity to explain it more. But all of this pales in comparison to the monster stuff. I loved the battles and fights. Everything about them was amazing and well executed. I think my favorite part of the entire film was watching the smaller legions attack humans, mainly because of how remarkable the special effects were. However, I do wish that Gamera wasn't asleep for half the film. I felt like there was a lot of missed potential there. And I also feel like the ending was kind of out of nowhere. Like, as far as I can remember, there was no build up or setup to it, and it just kind of came suddenly. But other than that, this aspect of the film was incredibly well done and definitely lives up to that of its predecessors. So, those are my thoughts on the plot. Now let's move on to our next category. So, in the last video, I took some time during the plot segment to talk about my favorite scene in the first film. And while watching this movie, I decided I wanted to take some time to talk about my favorite scene in it as well. And I'll probably do the same thing for Revenge of Iris when that video comes around. Alright, so my absolute favorite scene in Attack of Legion, by far, has to be the first subway scene, because it's just terrifying. Like, seriously, this part of the movie feels more like a horror film than a kaiju flick. The scene, if I remember correctly, is the first human encounter with the legions, and it takes place in a subway tunnel. The conductor of the subway train notices something off with the track ahead, so he struggles to get a better look at it, and to his shock he realizes that the track ahead has been almost completely obliterated and destroyed. He activates the brakes and is only barely able to stop the train just in time. After the train stops, he opens the door and shines his flashlight out to see what's wrong. We are then suddenly confronted by a strange creature who attacks the conductor. The last thing we see of him is his hand falling against the glass door, followed by a splatter of blood. The passengers see this and begin running away from the cockpit before they are confronted by supposedly the same creature. The camera then cuts to the floor of the cabin, where we see a pair of broken glasses fall to the floor, dripping with blood. I'll be honest, I was shocked that they included a scene like this in a kaiju movie. I mean, it's truly a welcome addition, as it is my favorite scene, but it was surprisingly horrifying compared to the rest of the movie. I think this scene does a perfect job of establishing the new threat the humans now face. The horrifying way in which the legions are introduced really shows how terrifying animals like this can be. This scene actually kind of reminds me about how horrifying something like a Shin Godzilla 2 could be, with the humanoid creatures roaming the city and attacking individual people. So, yeah, this was an incredible scene, and I hope to see more like it in the future. Now let's move on to the characters. And they're pretty much the same as the last movie. There's really no development at all, but they help to drive the plot forward and aren't overall useless. They're pretty on par for a monster film, but I had fun watching the interactions and dynamics they had with each other. But I don't really have much else to say. They were fine. How about that? Alright, so now here are my thoughts on the acting. The acting in this film is actually surprisingly good. It's actually better than the first, which already had really decent acting. I truly felt like I was watching real people on screen. It still has that air of cheesiness that most Japanese flicks have, but it's just the right amount to where it almost feels like it complements the acting. I really like this part of the film, even if it wasn't exactly the best. And I can pretty much say the same for our next category. Alright, the dialogue and delivery in this film is way better than in the first. I don't know, it might just be exactly the same, and I'm just more used to it now, but as far as I can remember, it didn't have any ultra cheesy standout lines like the first did. The emotion in the voices of the characters wasn't very strong, but it was still expressed well enough for me to be able to suspend my disbelief and believe that it was real. Overall, though, all I really care about is that it's definitely an upgrade over the first. That's all I could really ask for. Now, let's move on to our next subject. The music is one of the few parts of this film I can say wasn't better or even as good as it was in the first. The title card didn't have the same impact, and the music felt less epic or fitting, except for the horror scenes where it really peaked. It definitely isn't as memorable as the music in the first film, but it's still really good. I feel like they could have done a lot better of a job here, but our last two categories, in my opinion, definitely make up for the slack in this part. The special effects in this film were better than the first, and that's saying a lot considering the special effects in Guardian of the Universe were my favorite parts of the whole film. I love the suit designs of both Gamera and Legion. I can't get over how creepy the legs sticking out of Legion's side were, and the way they moved independently like fingers. That definitely gave me the creeps. I didn't mention the suit designs in my Guardian of the Universe review because I didn't really have anything to say about them, but they were just way better in this film to the point where I can't ignore them. The more turtle-like head and face of Gamera made him look less comedic and more serious, which, even though I didn't mention it in last week's review, was one of the only things I disliked about the special effects in Guardian of the Universe. I also can't get over how impressive the miniatures were, especially one of the seed pods, and the crater shot after the seed pod is shot into space is incredible. Also, the smaller legions are awesome. I don't even think I have to explain further, just watch the movie if you haven't already. The explosions were just perfect. Everything in this category was masterful, and I could go on and on if I wanted to. As a fan of special effects in classic movies, you can definitely tell I've been having a field day with this one so far. Anyways, I don't want this category to take up any more of the video as it's already taken up the majority of it. So let's move on to our final category for today. Alright, I just had to make a cinematography category for this film. It's probably the best part of it besides the special effects. The shots of the monsters were especially well executed, and even the human parts had incredible shots and angles. My second favorite scene in the whole film is elevated to such a status for me because of the cinematography. It's the scene where a singular legion attacks two guys at some sort of power plant or whatever the thing is called, and then a third guy busts in and saves the day by shooting the legion multiple times. All the camera shots in this scene, especially when the dude aims the gun for the final time, were just so epic. The transitions, however, were just as lazy as before. It's just the same sliding transition every time, just like in Guardian of the Universe. However, I was able to ignore them after a while, so that's definitely a plus. So, those are all my thoughts on this category, which means it's now time for our final rating. Gamera Attack of Legion is an incredible kaiju film with a remarkable plot and amazing special effects and cinematography. I give this film a 9 out of 10. Same rating as Guardian of the Universe because, like I said, I just can't decide which one's better. Although I guess if I was forced to only watch one for the rest of my life, I would choose this one. Both are truly amazing films, and I will definitely be watching them over and over again. But what I've truly been excited for, the main reason I started this trilogy, is The Revenge of Iris. Look forward to that review likely coming next week. Until then, this is goodbye. Thanks for watching.